We can just look around. It seems like there's miracles all around us, but how often do we take it for granted? You know, I used to tell a story out at the Flying W Ranch for years and years. I got to share it with you. It's always exciting to me. But the guy who really kind of raised me, he really is responsible for church on the ranch. Probably the whole family, Terry and Leanne, but Russ Wolf, who I just love with all of my heart. If you give him a big round of applause, God bless you, Russ. My heart is always full. You're responsible for so much of this. God's used you in such a powerful way, sir. Hey, I would tell Wes a lot of times, though, that we'd tell a story that we'd been out camping. And, you know, this time Wes and I were trying to get more spiritual than we've been before. We were beginning to really try and acknowledge God in our presence, in our midst. And we'd gone up camping, and we was about to go to bed. We was laying there one night, and I said, Wes, look up at the sky and tell me what you see. And he said, man, I see the universe up there. I can see the moon and the stars, shooting stars running across there. And I said, well, what does that make you think? And I said, well, it makes me think, he said, about how awesome God is. He created this whole universe. He created everything in it. And he created little old us, and yet he loves us. He loves us so much that he sent his son to die for us. And I was so impressed. I said, Wes, that's amazing. And he said, why, what do you think? And I said, well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that somebody has stole our tent. You can be out there in the middle of all of it, and you can miss the miracle. We have a story today. If you'll open up your Bibles. If you don't have a Bible with you, we got a whole desk full of them out there in front. You can just grab one on the way by. We're in the Gospel of John, and we're in chapter 6. And to kind of back up a little bit, Jesus has just fed the 5,000. Remember, the little boy had the lunch, and he had some barley loaves, and he had a couple of fish, and Jesus was preaching to all of them. And so he asked Philip right off. He says, how are we going to feed him? And Philip basically says, we don't have enough money. He counted up all the money, and then he turned to Andrew, and Andrew said, well, we got this little boy. He's got some provision. He's got some fish and some barley loaves, but it's not nearly enough. And of course, Jesus took what little they had, and he made it enough, which is a business that God is in. And so he'd done this huge miracle, and then he'd left. And at this stage of the game, he kind of let people know what was there. He'd been feeding them a little bit. Quite often, he didn't want people to know what he'd done. He'd heal someone, and then he'd say, don't tell anybody. We've read that several times. He was kind of keeping a secret. It's hard to keep a secret. You can get in trouble. That can blow up on you every now and then. I heard a story from a couple weeks ago. It was the 4th of July. There was a big old 4th of July party somewhere, and this family had invited their friends all out in the country to have a big old barbecue, and then they had these fireworks. Fireworks is illegal, but they knew it, but they figured they was out in the country. They could blow off so much fireworks as they wanted, nobody would know. So as the guests began to arrive, one of the families had come brought a friend, and they introduced him to him. Turned out he was a policeman. So they started changing plans real quick. So the old fella, he called his son and said, get all them fireworks out there, go and hide them. Hide them somewhere so we don't get in any trouble. And then just after that, one of the other families that showed up had some chicken that they were wanting to warm up. And so he pointed them out to where the barbecue grill was, and he just said, just go ahead and fire it up, and it'll warm up a little bit, and then we'll warm the chicken up later. But when his son got back, he said, man, that was a close call. I'm glad you got it. He said, where'd you hide them? His son said, well, they'll never find them in the gas grill. That's what happens when we keep secrets most of the time, isn't it? They kind of blow up on you and turn in the wrong direction. Well, Jesus and the disciples got across the Sea of Galilee, and the folks figured out where he was. Of course, in the meantime, Jesus had walked on the water, and then all of a sudden they was over on the other side. So we got a lot of miracles that are going on here. But if we begin in verse 25, the crowd got over there and found him. And when they found him on the other side of the lake, it says, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? And Jesus answered, I tell you the truth, you were looking for me not because you saw miraculous signs, but because you ate the loaves and you had your fill. Then he goes on and says, don't work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. On him, God has placed his seal of approval. But they still didn't get it. They still tried to say, well, what work can we do? How can we earn the approval of God? And Jesus says, the work of God is this, to believe the one that he has sent. And he goes on to explain that to them a little bit further, but it seems like they've misunderstood what Jesus has said and done with them up to this point. They missed the miracle almost all together. Max Lucado tells us that sometimes, because there are so many miracles around us, we begin to take them for granted, because Jesus didn't just do several miracles. They happen every single day. We're surrounded by miracles. The psalmist marveled at this kind of holy handiwork. He says, where can I go from your spirit, Lord? See, he's here when we're gathered in his name. Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to the heavens, you are there. And if I make my bed in the depths, you are there. You kind of wonder sometimes, with so many miraculous testimonies all around us, how we can possibly escape God. But somehow or another, we seem to miss him. Max Lucado says, in an art gallery of divine creativity, we are content to gaze only at the carpet. But actually, it's worse than that. It's actually pathetically worse than that. See, we not only gaze at the carpet, we demand more. More signs, more proof, more hat tricks. It's kind of like maybe God was some vaudeville magician and we're trying to summon up tricks for $1 or $2. How have we grown so deaf? How have we grown so callous and so cold to all the things that God is doing around us? We're so reluctant to be amazed and staggered by God's goodness and his hand in the middle of us. This has happened in our story today. Jesus just fed 5,000 men and some incredible unknown number of women and children with 5 little barley loaves and a couple of fish. See, that would qualify, I think, as a pretty spectacular miracle. And what was the result of that? Really, it was predictable. People started following me in droves, for sure, but for what? Why were they coming to him? For more bread, for more fish. The bread was good, Lord. Can we have some more? How about some more fish? Maybe we could have dessert this time too, Lord. Surely, they said, this is the prophet who is come into the world. But then we see Jesus says, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, that he withdrew to a mountain by himself. And later he joins the disciples, leaving the crowd behind. But the crowd follows. They find him. And why wouldn't they? So you've probably seen images of that part of the world even today. And in the first century, this was a hard place to live. See, there weren't 7-Elevens on every corner, and there weren't food stamps. You couldn't just go down to the supermarket whenever you wanted to. I mean, getting enough food to survive was a task. It was a difficult thing to do. People actually starved to death quite often in those times. And they would die of thirst at the same time if they didn't have water. Anybody who could give them food and drink without effort was going to go right up to the top of their list of heroes and saviors. All right, you're okay in my book. What are we having for breakfast today? See, the lack of security that marked their everyday existence is something that we can't understand, since we've never had a daily struggle to get enough food and water and shelter just to survive, just to get by. But Jesus didn't come to provide food for the body. He came to provide eternal spiritual food that flows from a relationship with God. See, the people who were seeking him that day were missing the real miracle that he came to bring. Philip Yancey, in a great book, it's called Disappointment with God, tells us that Jesus, who presumably could work a miracle anytime he wanted, anywhere, seemed kind of ambivalent about miracles. He used them with his disciples to prove who he was. In John 14, we read him saying, believe in me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or at least believe on the evidence of the miracles themselves. See, the miracles provided an evidence of who he was in relationship. But even then, when he performed them, as we mentioned quite often, he'd say, don't tell anybody. At least 7 times in the Gospel of Mark, he says, don't tell anyone. Because Jesus well knew the shallow effect of miracles in Old Testament times up to that point. In Moses' day, in Elijah's day, they could attract crowds, but rarely did they encourage long-term faithfulness. See, he was bringing a hard message of obedience and sacrifice to people who lived in hard times. It wasn't easy believism. He wasn't looking for a sideshow of gawkers and sensation seekers. And sure enough, the true skeptics of his day, much like the people today, explained away every single miracle. Have you ever noticed they do that? You ever turned on one of the supposedly educational TV channels that explain what really happened with the miracles of the Bible? That's absolutely incredible to me that they can be so blind and so misguided and yet consider themselves so well informed. I saw a show the other day that was explaining how the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea when the Red Sea parted. I can tell you how they did it. It was a miracle. Amen. God parted the Red Sea. And they don't even understand that. They don't even explain themselves fully. They take part of what is the truth to create an untruth. In this particular time, they said that maybe it wasn't really the Red Sea after it all. Maybe it was another sea. It was a misunderstanding. It was a sea of reeds, they said, which is much shallower and much shorter to cross. And there was some kind of a wind anomaly that blew everything up, and there was a land bridge across there. And so actually the children of Israel walked across that sea in only 6 or 8 inches of water. They patted themselves on the back because they thought they'd explained it so perfectly. But I ask you this, how did Pharaoh's army drown in 6 inches of water? I mean, you can do all the things you want, but how about this? A miracle-producing God who created the universe. And if he did that, parting the Red Sea is no big deal. But they could explain it away in those days, just like they do in these days. With remarkable consistency, the Bible's accounts show that miracles, the dramatic show-stopping in miracles that we so often think we want to see, simply do not foster deep faith. We don't have to go any further for that than really the transfiguration. Remember, we talked about that several months ago when Jesus took some of the disciples up on the Mount of Transfiguration. And that Jesus' face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling. And suddenly, to the disciples' astonishment, Moses and Elijah joined them in the cloud, and God spoke audibly, and they were so terrified that they fell on the ground. But what effect did this incredible, stupendous event have on Peter and James and John? After seeing something like that, surely it would permanently silence any doubts they had. Their faith would be rock solid. But a few weeks later, when Jesus needed them the most, they bailed out, just like we do sometimes. You see, miracles don't seem to produce at all the kind of faith that we might think they would. They serve as signs of the mission that our Lord was on, previews of what God would someday do for all creation. For the people who experienced them, the ones who received the healings, the paralytic who was lowered down for cleansing and healing to Jesus, they offered convincing proof that God was visiting the earth. For everyone else, they just awakened longings that will not be fulfilled until a final restoration ends all pain and death. See, the miracle did just what Jesus thought it would do, just what he predicted it would do. To those who chose to believe in him, it gave them even more reason to believe. But for those that were determined to deny him, the miracles made little difference. It didn't really convince them at all. See, some things just have to be believed to be seen. See, we get mixed up on what our real needs are. They recently had an extensive survey in the United States. One polling agency passed out questionnaires to people of all ages and occupations, and the question was, the key question, what are you looking most for in life? And when they compiled the results, they were kind of surprised because they figured that material goals would top the list. But the top 3 things that the people wanted most in life were love and joy and peace. Those are all things that God came to bring. That's what Jesus came to bring. That's what he was communicating with the miracle of the fishes and the loaves. Somehow, like so often happens, they seem to miss it. Jesus realized that people were coming to him for the wrong reasons. I tell you the truth, you're looking for me not because you saw miraculous signs, but because you ate loaves and fishes. I filled your belly.